If you think free models cannot produce realistic AI voices locally like this one,
If you haven't subscribed to Analytics Camp, you will be exiled to the Siberian Gulag.
then sit tight till the end, because even if you are an absolute beginner in text-to-speech with very basic Python skills, you can 100% reproduce this workflow with totally free and lightweight models that you can run locally. The cherry on top is that you don't even need your GPU for this. These lightweight models can be run on CPU too. I'm also going to show you how I clone Andrew Ng's voice to reproduce human-like emotions, pulses, and tone of voice without hallucination, all in just a few lines of code. And yes, this includes saving the audio files directly inside your folder. For that, we only need these two imports. One is the TTS class from TTS AI, which is part of the Coqui-ai set of text-to-speech or TTS models. And the other is just an audio display you need from display widget, so you can directly test your audio from inside your notebook. So install them in your virtual environment if you haven't done so already. Alright, so before I get into the voice cloning workflow, I show you the most simple text-to-speech setup where you give a text as input and a TTS model just converts it to audio. I have tested a bunch of models and the ones you see here produced higher quality and a more natural voice. I will tell you in a bit how to see all available models in this Python package, but for now let's test one of the famous models called Tacotron 2 DDC. This is how you load the English version of this model using the TTS class. You can also load the model directly from Hugging Face from SpeechBrain. This is the full name or ID of this model. Here I am keeping the workflow running only on CPU because it's a small model. But if you plan to work with a larger model, you can set GPU to true. This next bit is the core of the workflow, and to be honest, quite easy to set up. First, we define the text input area that is going to be displayed as an input box later on. Then we give the output audio file a name. This will be in the WAV format. The most important part is this TTS to file method that is called on an instance of the TTS class that we just defined, and receives the text and the file path to save the output audio file. All that is left is to use the display and the audio class so we can listen to the converted audio right inside the notebook. It's just a convenient way to test a bunch of models without going back and forth through our folder. Here I'm running the cell with the text I've prepared before and just pasting it in the input box. The Tacotron 2 model is quite light, so it only takes a few seconds to convert this one sentence to speech. Take a listen.
If you haven't subscribed to Analytics Camp, you will be exiled to the Siberian gulags.
Even though it's quite obvious that it's an AI voice, but it's one of the most natural sounding ones I've tested in this package. Oh, and if you'd like to see a list of all available models in this package, just use the list models method like this. I've tested many of them and some of them are really good. So far we know the base workflow works, and it's just a few lines of code you can reproduce on your own with different models. Something I wanted to warn you earlier is that if your text is too short, like just one word or a few words, most of these models cannot handle it, and they're most likely to just stutter the same word again and again in a really weird way. I mean, hallucinating like this.
Hello, Miriam. Hello, Miriam. Hello, Miriam.
So make sure your text is at least a full sentence with an end of sentence punctuation. Great, now the fun part, the actual voice cloning workflow, where you give a sample voice, for example, a couple of seconds of your own recorded audio, and the model will reproduce your own voice based on your input text. For this part, I prepared a 21-second audio file in WAV format from one of my previous recordings. I think it's long enough for the model to understand my tone of voice, but for this we need to change the model to a voice cloning one. Here I'm using the XTTS v2 model from the multilingual set of models and running it on CPU again, because it's also a lightweight model. The rest of the workflow is similar to the previous one, except that here we need to specify the path to the sample voice and ask the model to produce an English audio. You can also specify other languages. So far they are covering 16 main languages, but your input text should also be in that language or the audio will sound weird. Take a listen to the first attempt with my own voice.
If you haven't subscribed to Analytics Camp, you will be exiled to the Siberian gulags.
Right, the end part didn't go as well as I expected, so I'm giving it another go.
If you haven't subscribed to Analytics Camp, you will be exiled to the Siberian gulags.
Alright, this one is much better. The tone of voice is closer to the sample voice, and it managed to pronounce the words more accurately, even though I specifically chose a more difficult sounding word like gulags. I've tested a bunch of other voice cloning models, and this one seems to pronounce less common words better. Some models also cannot handle proper names if you use uppercase letters like Analytics Camp in this sentence. So far, this sounds good enough. I don't know if I should use my AI voice for the next videos or just keep recording my voice. You tell me. But this also works on other sample voices, like this next voice cloning with Andrew Ng's sample voice. I've worked with a ton of TTS models, and my experience shows that the quality of the sample voice is more important than the duration of it. That's why I picked this particular voice clip, because it includes a lot of natural pauses and rhythms.
And then planning, for those of you that have not yet played a lot with planning algorithms, I feel like a lot of people talk about the ChatGPT moment where you're, wow, never seen anything like this.
I'm sure you noticed that his talk was not monotonous and that there is a natural tone and rhythm there. So in this respect, it's better than my own voice sample. So this time I reduced the sample duration to only 10 seconds. Let's take a listen to the generated voice and see if we can notice the difference.
If you haven't subscribed to Analytics Camp, you will be exiled to the Siberian gulags.
Wow, this one was really good. I mean, the natural tone of voice, accurate pronunciation, and the pause at comma were all great. But the text input was only one sentence. So I'm going to do an experiment with a longer text, which is exactly the one spoken by Andrew Ng in that original clip I played for you. So let's paste his own original text and see if the AI model can replicate it. But before I play it for you, let's listen to the original clip one more time.
And then planning, for those of you that have not yet played a lot with planning algorithms, I feel like a lot of people talk about the ChatGPT moment where you're, wow, never seen anything like this.
And now the AI generated one.
And then planning, for those of you that have not yet played a lot with planning algorithms, I feel like a lot of people talk about the ChatGPT moment where you're at, well, I've never seen anything like this.
Alright, except for the ChatGPT part, this one was very close to the original voice. I'm sure you agree that the AI voice carried all the features from Andrew Ng's voice, including the natural pauses and intonation. The main reason was that the sample voice contained the exact voice parameters I wanted to clone. So this is another takeaway from this tutorial. But if you're experimenting with many of these models locally, they can build up quite fast and take a lot of space. So here's a useful tip on how to automatically delete a model you no longer need right from your workflow. If you're on Mac or Linux, these models get automatically downloaded to your .local share in a TTS directory. And I think for Windows users, it goes here, but please check again. Here are a few lines of code for Mac or Linux users to get rid of unused models. Just point to that folder and specify the model. Build the full path like this and remove it with all its dependencies. Here for me it shows no cached model found because I've already deleted this smaller model. So to sum it up, make sure your text is long enough and include the shorter sentences as part of the longer one. Sample voice quality is more important than the duration. So choose a sample audio which includes important voice features you want to replicate. For example, pitch, articulation, tone, emphasis, and even the volume. To signal natural pauses, use punctuation such as a comma or a semicolon in your text. And if the first attempt doesn't go well, just execute the same cell again because the model's results can slightly vary from one output to the next. If you'd like to see a lip sync tutorial similar to the one I showcased at the beginning of this video, let me know in the comments. But here is another AI agents code tutorial you can easily reproduce locally.